This is the Sales Whisper Podcast, session 17. Time to become a sales champion. Welcome, everybody, to session 17 of the Sales Whisper Podcast. Today, you are in for a treat. I'm interviewing Eric Lofholm of Eric Lofholm International, Inc. at saleschampion.com. Eric is a professional sales trainer. He is an author. He's got another book coming out that we discuss in the podcast. But Eric has a unique approach to sales training because he comes from a humble background, which we'll talk about how he literally went from worst to first in 60 days. He was a failure when he first got into sales. But through professional coaching, mentoring, training, having a system, following a process, he is now becoming a household name in the world of sales training and improvement. So enjoy this podcast with Eric Lofholm. Eric Lofholm, how are you today?
Doing great.
Hey, man, thanks for taking the time to come on the Sales Whisper podcast. You know, as we were talking about before, I aim this podcast at really a wide swath. Sometimes we have to have a niche, right? But people always say, what's your niche, Wes? And I say, I help human beings sell to human beings. So that's why I wanted to have you on because, the podcast is aimed at, beginners to seasoned people. But, I don't know if you remember, but you and I met down in San Diego. I think it was an Infusionsoft event.
Okay.
And I don't know if you were speaking, though, or not. You may have been in one of the breakout sessions. But we said hello briefly. But I have followed you. I've seen your ads. You've got your call center cranking things out. So, I wanted everybody to kind of hear your story from sales failure, right, as you put on your website, into your business today. So you ready for all that?
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
So we see your ad, see you online, but can you start at the beginning? I mean, we see successful people. You've got 3 books out now, right?
Right. Yep.
And so we think it's just been so easy, and you were just on easy street, right? And just handed the silver spoon and turned it into platinum, but that wasn't the case, was it?
No, I've worked very, very hard. I'm not a naturally born salesperson. Those people, they're very fortunate because they don't really have to work at it so hard. But I started off in sales. I went to work for a multimillionaire real estate investor, and I wanted to learn real estate. So I got there. I said, "What do you want me to do?" And he's like, "You work the phones for me. You do phone sales." So I'm like, "All right." So I'm on a team of 15 people. I'm the bottom producer. My first year I worked there. I missed quota 2 months in a row. The quota is $10,000 in gross revenue. Manager pulls me in the office. He's like, "Eric, selling's not for everybody. It's probably not for you. You're my bottom guy. You can't even hit quota. So you got one more month or you're out." And so my back was against the wall. And I created an intention that I was going to learn sales. And it was out of that intention that I was drawn to my first sales mentor, a guy named Dr. Donald Moyne, who wrote Unlimited Selling Power, which is a book you can get on Amazon.com. And he trained me. I received professional sales training for the first time in my life. And the month I was on quota probation, I hit the quota by one sale. I did $10,500 in gross sales. And then the following month, I did $51,000. So, Wes, I went from worst to first in 60 days. And it was directly related to receiving professional training. How I got into the training industry, I believe that everybody's born with natural gifts and talents, and it wasn't sales for me, but my natural gift is teaching. So when I understand something, I can teach it to somebody else in a way that they can get it. And so at age 23, I started teaching my coworkers what Dr. Moyne taught me, and I actually started producing some pretty incredible success stories in my early 20s. I wasn't even paid for it. I'm just like, "Hey, try this, try that," and they tried it, and it worked. And then I went and worked for Tony Robbins for 3 years, and 14 and a half years ago, I set out to become the Zig Ziglar of my generation. I wanted to become, world-class elite sales trainer known, all over the planet. And so here I am in my 15th year now, and we've got a successful training company that's growing on a daily basis.
So this was when? Late 80s, early 90s, I guess, early to mid-90s?
So I started in 1999 with my training company, and I got into sales in 92.
Okay. So obviously this is right in your brain, right? It's always there. I mean, can you put your finger on one thing, two things that you learned in those first 30 days that flipped that switch, lit that fire?
Well, when it comes to professional training, one of the things that needs to be learned is how do you deliver an effective sales presentation from start to finish? And so I learned things like sequencing. What are the components of an effective sales presentation? So like trust and rapport, identifying needs, storytelling, closing, and I had never been trained on those specific distinctions and then the order to put them in. So once I learned how to deliver an effective presentation, then I was able to. You think about it. Once you learn something, you got it. So once I knew how to give an effective presentation, I could do it over and over and over and over and over again. So then every presentation that I delivered was effective because I had the system. And so it was really about learning what to say in the proper sequence that made all the difference for me.
How have things changed in 14 years or even 20 years? Obviously, the 90s, it was different, right? We didn't have caller ID, didn't have the do not call list. Money was a little easier and free-flowing, How have things shifted in your mind, and how has your training changed since then?
Yeah, it's interesting. When I broke into the training industry, I was in the seminar business. And so if you trained with me, you used to come to a hotel ballroom, and that's how we trained. Like, you and I met at that one conference. It was in a hotel ballroom.
Yep. And,
now here you and I we're on Skype doing this podcast, and we set this up over Twitter.
Yeah.
So the thing that's changed is technology. So the whole thing is, if I'm coaching somebody now, it's, okay, let's get you professionally trained. That's step number one. But then let's integrate technology into the sales process so you can create leverage. I had an appointment yesterday that I wasn't able to keep, and so I texted the guy and said, look, I can't make it. I'll need to reschedule. And so I got an autoresponder email today and an autoresponder text saying, sorry we missed you yesterday. Contact us to reschedule. So, that's the shift, is learning the technology tools and then integrating them into the sales process strategically, and then also at the same time being professionally trained. That's the key to the future from my viewpoint.
So is there still a need for sales training, or can we all just learn Twitter and LinkedIn and how to post and just make millions?
Yeah, well, the thing with technology is technology is a tool, but it doesn't create the connection. In some cases, you can have technology deliver a sales presentation. Like, my mentor, one of them, Tony Robbins, he would deliver a 30-minute infomercial, and you'd call up and buy. So technology actually delivered the sales presentation. But for most people, there needs to be a human element. There needs to be really listening to what the needs are, building the trust. And so the way I look at technology tools, in some cases, they do all the selling for me. But in most cases, they're just simply one piece of the overall sales strategy. And at the end of the day, there's still a huge amount of connection, especially when it comes to like joint ventures. Doing collaborative relationship, you're not going to do that over social media. You're going to go break bread with somebody and look them in the eye and get that feeling of trust in order to move forward on like a collaborative relationship, for example.
Yeah, I see that a lot. People, we talk about social media marketing, right? Most small business owners, they're not sociable and they don't know marketing. And they think it's going to save them, right? But I think social media just proves the point that human beings are social, community-oriented creatures, and that that relationship is so important. I mean, and that's I don't do as much sales training as you. I'm a lot more with Infusionsoft and overall marketing, but it's kind of coming back, at least for me, where I see. I mean, people. I don't know if they're just losing their mind because they're at their computers so much, but that human element, I mean, is so important. Are you finding people are they more receptive now? Have you experienced kind of a pendulum since you started? Like, were they really receptive and then weren't and now are again? Or are you seeing a steady growth? Or
Yeah, my new book that's coming out, it's called Everybody Sells. And I think that there's an openness like there never has been before to receiving professional sales training in non-sales industries, like industries that don't view themselves as salespeople. Like you take a chiropractor,
yep.
You take an attorney. They don't think of themselves as salespeople, but they're realizing, wow, because money is tighter, because there is more competition in some industries, I have to get better. And so I'm finding in non-traditional sales industries, people, they're more open to receiving training than ever before.
Cool. Now, so we're talking about technology, of course, but do you get into specifics like what to do with voicemail, how to handle receptionists and gatekeepers? And I mean, do you get that nitty gritty?
We get that nitty gritty in the sense of I have 4 levels of training as far as group training. In level 1, we teach sales process. In level 2, we teach sales scripting. And so what we're teaching is any common sales scenario that comes up, you want to prepare it in advance. So if you're talking to a gatekeeper, we already know that they're called the gatekeeper for a reason. So like one script you might say is you're trying to get through to this person, and Mary, is the gatekeeper. Mary, I've called 3 or 4 times. I haven't been able to reach so-and-so. If you were me, what advice would you give me in order to reach so-and-so? That's like a script that you could use over and over and over again if you were calling 3 or 4 times in. So you're leaving in a voicemail. You want to script out your voicemail. You're setting an appointment. You want to script out your appointment. It doesn't mean that we're going to be robotic in the sales process. It means that we're going to be prepared for the common scenarios that come up. So right. The way we would train on that is we would teach the distinction of scripting and different techniques that you can use to increase the likelihood that the other person says yes.
Scripts? You mean, I can't do a script, Eric. I mean, it takes away my natural flow, man. I mean, really? You're going to shoehorn me into a script?
Yeah, it's interesting because people tend to resist scripts because it's never been explained to them in a way where they get it. And so the actual definition of a script is words in sequence that have meaning. What that means is, like right now, we're not going off a set of questions. You're asking me questions, I'm responding. So I don't have a set script, but I'm using a script in that I'm talking and I'm making sense. So once you realize that winging it is still a script, then you go, okay, so if that's a script, then there's no reason for me to resist scripting anymore. I'm going to embrace scripting. And now we train you on how to prepare in advance. We train you on things that you can say that increase the likelihood that the other person says yes. So in no way is it, controlling a salesperson. It's actually freeing them up to have things that they can do that, again, it comes all back to, if you want more yeses, you want to learn the language of influence. And it's a language like Spanish or English or French. There's an actual language of influence that you can learn that increases the likelihood that the other person says yes.
Yeah, I always tell people, like, how much money does David Letterman or Tom Cruise make? And what do they do for a living? They read a script and they ask questions. So if it works for them, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, human beings respond in predictable ways. If we go to a movie and it's a comedy, at the 17-minute mark, if everybody in the audience laughs, and then we stay in the theater, and then the next group comes in to watch the movie, we just look at our watch and it's 17 minutes, we know everybody's going to laugh. Mm-hmm. And that'll happen every single time at the 17-minute mark. And the sales presentation is similar in that human beings respond in predictable ways. So there's ways that you can overcome objections in a predictable manner, bring the benefits to life, move the prospect to action. And it's actually not hard to learn And it's not intuitive unless you're a naturally born salesperson. So that's how I went from worst to first in 60 days, is I was taught a relatively simple system that once I got it. And, I've done, millions and millions of dollars in revenue since then.
Yeah, I think it's important, the typical salesperson, right? We're the outgoing type. I mean, we don't want to necessarily follow rules. We're not an engineer or an accountant on purpose, right? But I remember it kind of clicked for me reading about like bands, the 80s, Van Halen, you name it, but growing up with my 80s big hair bands. And, I just went to see Chicago a couple of weeks ago. One of their singers is a client of mine. But seeing how the professionals, every single thing is scripted. We may only see the concert one time, but it's the exact same concert every time. I think it was Wayne Newton that said, the professional can repeat the exact same thing, but make it seem unique every time, right? And so when all that kind of sunk into my brain, it's like, okay, a professional leaves nothing to chance. We've got to script this out. So I'm glad you mentioned scripting. So something else that you mentioned was getting yeses. And so I kind of call it old school training was, always get them nodding, get them going for yes, yes, yes. But do you ever teach it's okay to go for no?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to make one point about just sales in general, because you mentioned like an engineering type. Well, or an introverted type. My natural style may surprise those of you that are listening. My natural style is introverted. If I was at a party, even today, I'm the guy over in the corner, not talking to anybody on my phone, because I'm not that outgoing, extroverted personality. And the good news when you're following a system, it doesn't matter if you're outgoing, if you're introverted, if you're the engineer type, if you're kind of all over the place. If you have a structure to follow. So I want to just inspire any of you listening. If you think, well, I'm introverted, there's no hope for me. There absolutely is hope for you, because I'm introverted as well. And as far as going for no, see, we want the prospect to say yes unless we want the prospect to say no. So like I'll say to somebody, do you know exactly what to say to get someone to buy from you? And I'm going for no there.
Sure.
Because if they go yes, what do they need me for?
Right.
They go, no, I don't know what to say to get someone to buy from me. And I go, great, then you need my help, because that's exactly what I can train you on step by step, so you're clear on that. So We want to think, am I looking for a yes? Like, does that make sense? That's a yes statement. Does that make sense? Are you following what I'm saying? We're going for a yes, or we're going for agreement, harmony. But then there's other times where we're going for a no to reveal a problem or a pain point that they have that our product or service can solve.
Right. Do you find, like, if you're working at a mid or large size company, who brings you in? And what I mean by that is sometimes I can see a sales trainer being a threat to a sales manager, right? Who thinks, well, this is my job and I should be teaching this, or, but is it like an open-minded sales manager that brings you in, or is it like an owner or a VP that's bringing you in? And how do you kind of massage that if you are seen as a threat?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was talking to a possible client yesterday, and he said that his sales manager turned over. And we got to talking about it. He said it all stemmed from, it wasn't me, but we brought in this outside sales trainer, and he didn't like that, and it ruffled his feathers, and that was the beginning of the end, and eventually he quit. And so, anybody considering bringing in an outside trainer, I think it's critical that there's alignment between, CEO, VP of sales, sales manager, sales trainer, where there isn't a threat, because in this particular client's case, after the guy came in and did the sales training, they were worse off than they were before they brought the guy in, because of just the human nature of it. So, typically somebody who would bring me in, entrepreneur, they've got a sales team of 2 to 10 people. They have a sales manager. The three of us work in harmony together in order to produce a common goal.
How often do you find that it's just it's the wrong people, because I'll have people say, can you train my people? I'm like, how do you know your people are trainable?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how many times is it somebody like you in the beginning that just needed the right process to follow versus, hey, bud, I hate to tell you, but, 8 out of 10 of your people, ixnay on the L say aiming tray.
Yeah, my mentor, Dr. Boyd, he has this funny saying along the lines of what you're talking about. And he says that you can't polish a tennis shoe. And so if your sales team's a bunch of tennis shoes, and you bring in a world-class sales trainer like myself, I can't really do much with them. So I need some talent to work with. And it depends on how complex the sale is. So if it's not all that complex of a sale, we don't need that strong of a salesperson. But if it's pretty complex, you need the right person for the right job. And one of the things that I like to talk about is I call it energy advantage. And it's just another way of saying, what are your natural gifts and talents? And so if it's a relationship style sale, then we need somebody who has an energy advantage of building and nurturing long-term relationships. If it requires field networking, you need somebody like yourself that, is very comfortable in those settings. I would be terrible in that. I did door knocking one time, and I was so bad at it because it just scared me to death to go knock on strangers' doors. And so that didn't last very long. So it's really about, it's not just a talented salesperson. It's, because field sales is different than phone sales. Internet sales is different than front of the room selling. So I excel in front of the room sales because I love group presentations. So it's finding the right person with that right natural gifting. Then we give them the sales training on top of that. That's really where you get the incredible results.
With caller ID and tough assistance, does cold calling still work?
Yeah, in the old days, I used to say call. That was my message. And now I have a different message. It's marketing touches. So phone calls is one marketing touch, but a direct message on like LinkedIn or Facebook is a touch. An email is a touch. A text is a touch. And so this company that I missed, I had to cancel this appointment yesterday, they touched me with a text and with an email. So if I'm coaching somebody right now, what I usually tell them is, I want you to do a certain number of marketing touches per day, and here's the different ways to do it. What I find for myself when I'm doing my own prospecting, I tend to do a touch with email or direct message on social media, and then the phone call comes in after I get a response from them. Mm-hmm. I think that's in us setting up our call today. It was a direct message on Twitter, which then turned into a phone call, which turned into our podcast today. So I think it's integrating the marketing touches in and not relying exclusively on phone calls, because caller ID and gatekeepers, and some people don't answer their phone anymore, and if you're trying to market to them, you're not going to get through.
Can the gatekeeper or that executive assistant, do you have tips and techniques or a little gem you can give, for befriending them to help get through? Because a lot of companies still limit social media, for their salespeople, and a lot of times, you and I think are the creative ones. That's why we don't work corporate America anymore.
Yeah.
But for the corporate America sales guy, and maybe even the business owner that's maybe selling into corporate America, how can they leverage, that executive assistant to reach their goals over the phone? Well, I guess anyway, but,
Yeah, I think it starts with intention. And what I teach is stage selling. Stage selling means you sell the prospect from A to B, B to C, C to D. And if you look at the gatekeeper as the first sale, right? So I'm selling this person, because the gatekeeper's job is to get the right people through and the wrong people out. That's their job. Mm-hmm. So anytime you want to influence somebody, you've got to think like them. Right. So you got to think like the gatekeeper. And you got to think like, well, why would this gatekeeper, put me through to the decision maker? And trust and rapport is the first step in any sales process. So I laugh sometimes when somebody's calling a gatekeeper and they're acting like they're too cool for school. With the gatekeeper, I'm like, that's your rapport, that's your sale. So go in with the intention of building rapport, and just be very friendly with them. And you've got to sell them on why you need that person to get on their calendar. What is the benefit to the decision maker? Mm-hmm. And because at the end of the day, there's a teeter-totter. When you're booking an appointment, there's a teeter-totter in the mind of the prospect. And on one side of the teeter-totter is time, and on the other side is value. So you might go in, look, I just need 5 minutes of the decision maker's time. This is the value that they're going to receive in those 5 minutes. Assure them that they're going to love what I have to share. I mean, techniques like that where we're really conveying, at the end of the day, it's all value. We're conveying this is the value that they're going to receive. I already mentioned the one technique of you or me, what would you do? Things along those lines. And then lastly, you mentioned the word being creative. And here's a gem of an idea. So when I applied to work for the Tony Robbins organization, traditional strategy, contact the office, I want to fill out an application for a job. So I did that. And they said, we're not hiring. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to do now? And I thought, okay, I'm going to get in there through somebody else. And so a way of describing it is a sphere of influence selling. So instead of going in cold, which is what I tried, so I knew a guy that owned a Tony Robbins franchise at one time. His name is Mark Gonzalez. And I called up Mark and I said, Mark, I want to go work for Tony Robbins. Who do you know that I can leverage your name? And he goes, call the vice president of sales. Her name is Deb Hines. So I get Deb on the phone. Mark Gonzalez told me to call you, which was true. And she goes, great, what can I do for you? I said, well, I want to come work for you. She said, okay, come on in for an interview, and they hired me. So, sometimes it's leveraging that other person to get your foot in the door so you're not coming in cold. Everything can open up for you.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's more about being creative. If the phone is the frontal assault, and sphere of influence or social media is the flanking maneuver, I mean, sometimes you need all of the above, That's right. And you can try multiple approaches. You can go social media, sphere of influence selling, traditional cold calling, and you just committed to, I'm going to reach this person. And out of that commitment, it's like they can almost feel that commitment that you have. Like the gatekeeper can sense you're not going away. Like you need to get me through this person because we're going to get to, you can laugh at them. Let's say the woman's name is Barbara. Barbara, we're going to get to know each other really, really well here because I'm going to keep calling you until I get through. So I'll talk to you tomorrow, Barbara. I know. It's true. I mean, I remember, Tony Perinello selling the
Yeah,
Vito?
Sure.
So I've got to meet him a few times, and he's been on some calls, and he's down here in Southern Cal. And I remember the one I cracked up on was, leaving a series of voicemails. And, if somebody's a big enough prospect, then 5th, 6th, 7th voicemail, whatever, say, hey, Eric, this is Wes. Every night before I go to bed, I talk to God. What do I have to do to talk to you? I'm like, I've been teaching that one ever since, but it's true. Yeah. It's just personality, right? Just be a human being. And
that's right.
I think people try too hard, too many. And it's kind of two sides of the same coin, right? Because we tell them use a script, and they think, oh, I'm going to be too rigid. But it's really, here's a good script. Make it your own, but stay within the boundaries of this script because it's going to hit the points you need to hit, and let you be a human being, right?
Yeah, it's like first thing, embrace scripting, then learn the script. Then the next level is how do I weave in and out of this script? How do I bring in the creativity, bring in my personality, but then have the structure of the script? It's kind of like it's evolving to that level is like that highest level.
So does somebody need to be an expert at what their company does, or can they bring in a rookie that's hungry and can follow instructions and be a successful salesperson?
Well, it's interesting. My mentor, Dr. Moyne, told me about some research that was done where they took engineers that knew this product. It was a product that required engineers, and they knew every little nuance of the product. And then they brought in these other guys that weren't engineers and didn't have their level of knowledge but had the sales skills. And the guys with the sales skills outsold the guys with all the product knowledge. And so, obviously you want the best of both worlds. You want to know your product inside and out. But it's really about just connecting with people. And, every day that goes by, you're going to get a little bit better at the product knowledge. And that'll give you, that extra edge once you have the combination of both.
Right. Very cool. So when is your new book coming out?
It's 30 days or less. I've been working on it for a long time, and it's in the final stages. I have a partner that's helping me on the project, and we're meeting today, and it's very, very close to being finished. And it teaches this process of selling that my mentor taught me many years ago, and I'm really excited about it, especially for people that have never been exposed to sales training before. I mean, anybody can benefit from it, but especially those that are like, wow, I need to learn how to sell. I've never, I don't know who Zig Ziglar is or Tom Hopkins or Anthony Parnello or Jeff Gitomer, and it's kind of like I'm introducing them to this whole new world. We're really excited about helping those folks.
Very nice. So the best place to reach you is at your Sales Champion website?
Yeah, so saleschampion.com. And we do anywhere from 1 to 4 free live professional sales trainings per month. And the way you get invited to those, if you go to saleschampion.com and you opt in on the website, it's right there on the homepage, that'll get you on my email list, and you'll get 1 to 4 invitations a month, whether it's a free webinar or a free conference call or a free virtual seminar. You can do it all from the comfort of your own home. And you can have some great professional sales training for free and see if you resonate with my message.
So I'm glad you brought that up because that, I've experimented with recorded webinars. There's Stealth Seminar, there's Evergreen Business Systems. I'm using Evergreen Business Systems because my partner uses it. But you mentioned live, right? So have you kind of experimented? Are you using both live and recorded?
Yeah, I've done a lot. And I don't have a vision to eliminate me being in the equation. And so some trainers, their whole goal is, I want to get all the automation set up so I don't have to work anymore.
Right.
I'm just the opposite because this is what I love doing. So I'm not trying to get myself out of a job. Right. And so one thing we do, and we're really cutting edge on this, is we do a 3-hour live virtual interactive professional sales training once a month. And so people come to that thing, and it's not the same as being in a seminar room with me because we're virtual, but people from all over the world come in. It's interactive. It's a really, really cool experience, high-quality training, totally free. And there's no comparison to like a recorded webinar because there's a different energy when it's live and there's actual interaction that happens between the students. We are in Facebook during the training. So people are commenting in real time, and it's a really, really cool experience. And so I think in the near future, I'm going to be able to put like 1,000 people a month on this particular training, and it's replaced my need to do a hotel ballroom training.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool. You and I are a lot alike because, my buddies get, automate. And Fusionsoft, I'm big about automating, but yeah, I like doing this. I like teaching sales, marketing, copywriting. It's what I do. And
yeah.
So yeah, I don't necessarily want to do it 80 hours a week, but
right.
One time a week, one time a month. Good grief, that's not too much.
There's a place for automation, and I think that there needs to be more thought in it's all integrating, in this case training, integrating technology and training.
Right.
Because of this live element, I have a different connection with my students than people that are so heavily automated, where there's a lot of live interaction that happens with my students, and that bonds them to me. And so it's working really well for me.
That's I just finished the Steve Jobs book, and I've always been an Apple fan, but after reading the book, it just really hit home. You hear all the genius and all about Steve Jobs. He was technical, but he totally got sales and marketing. Every Wednesday they had, like a half-day marketing meeting. That's all they did. But he gave the keynote addresses. He knew it from beginning to end, and I'm glad you brought that up because our clients, the business owners, I think maybe sometimes they're too aloof, right? Or they think, I got people to handle that. But I think, I mean, you grow because people have that access to you. You're not hiding back somewhere, like you hear about these, bands where here in my contract, I need green M&Ms, and virgin spring water, from the Himalayas. I mean, it's like, we're just dudes. We're building a business, and here's how to do it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an important lesson our listeners need to take home. Any business owner, whether, one employee, if they're sole proprietor or big, come out from behind the desk, let the clients interact with you, and I bet they'll all see growth if they follow your model.
Yeah. If you're relying too heavily on automation, you're going to miss opportunities. I mean, just as an example, when you reached out about today's opportunity, if I was so in automation, we would have missed this. I love doing like what we're doing today, having a real connection. We happen to be using the technology of Skype, but we're having a live interaction. And, this is a big part of my business, and it definitely gives me a competitive advantage in the marketplace. You sign up for some of these other programs, and you hardly ever interact with, the quote-unquote guru. And just today, for example, in my entry-level program, I'm leading a day-and-a-half live virtual training. And so I'll be with my students for it's about 10 or 11 hours of training. But it's not going to be a recorded version of me. I'm going to be right there with them, and it's really helped my business out.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. This interview is going to help other people's business out. So again, it's saleschampion.com, right? So any parting words of wisdom for our listeners?
Well, I think what I want to share with if there's anybody out there listening that's in a place of, I'm not sure if I can do sales. I want you to know that every single one of you that's listening right now, you absolutely can do sales, and you can improve in sales, even if you're already good at it. And it's just like anything. It requires training. It requires practice. It requires intention. But it's within your grasp. It's not possible for every one of you to become a master salesperson, but every single one of you can improve, and you can be more successful and have more confidence. And so that's really what I'm a stand for with my clients, is that message of hope and possibility and improvement.
Yep. Amen. I mean, I know you brought that up. My very first private sales training client was an architect. So it's funny you bring that up. I mean, so that's fantastic. Well, Eric, I thank you for taking the time, and I'll have links and all to your site on the podcast. This will be what is this? This is session 17. So visit thesaleswhisperer.com, session 17, and we will have this up shortly. So thank you for taking the time, Eric.
All right, Wes. Thanks so much.
All right, man. Take care.
Hey, bye-bye.
What a great resource that Eric offers in his free live training. With technology the way it is today, free podcasts, free webinars, teleseminars, MP3s, things you can get on demand. You can listen to them in your car, like good old Zig Ziglar used to call it, Automobile University. You really are only limited by your imagination. There's no reason not to succeed if you set clear goals, and you're doing really what you need to be doing. Obviously, a 300-pound offensive guard on a professional football team may have a tough time being a jockey and winning the Kentucky Derby. But as long as what you're working on and striving towards is normal, natural, fits within your realm of possibilities, you can achieve it. And again, the resources are out there for either free or extremely low cost to hit your goals. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Be sure to visit thesaleswhisperer.com, session 17, for the notes, links to Eric's books, links to Dr. Moyne's books, links to Eric's website. Be sure you sign up for his free training, and then show how much you appreciate it by buying some of his training. And you can do the same from me at thesaleswhisperer.com. Good selling.